another episode of the I Learned podcast. Like most of these episodes, at this point as we approach episode 100, holy moly, most of these are not planned in advance. I'm sure it's wildly obvious that that's the case. But they're not. They're a feeling that is in me at the moment, that it feels inside of me like the feeling is begging to be translated into words, and that there is a real part of my emotional processing that happens out loud as I tell my story, that telling of the story is such an integral process to transmuting old energy, that transforming my story around the old energy is what actually transmutes the energy itself. And this today, I mean, every day is just more. There's always going to be more. And that's one of the pieces that I've had to really make peace with, is like, there is no end all be all truth that we're really trying to reach. Like, what we're reaching for is an ever evolving, clearer and clearer and clearer embodiment of our own truth. And that initiations into deepening our truth and feeling it in ourselves, that those initiations look like a lot of different things. Lots of different types of events can provide initiation into knowing who I really am on an even deeper, clearer level, being able to feel it in my bones on an even deeper level. There have been a lot. I'm recording this on Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. And so the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse conjunct the South Node was this past Sunday night. So it was Sunday night into Monday morning, the 15th into the 16th. And this has unleashed what I would call a portal. That word gets thrown around a lot in the astrological community. Like every time you turn around, they're talking about a different portal, and I kind of get lost in a lot of that. But in this experience, like, it is a felt experience of this portal that we are in, that has been opened. It was not a single energetic spike that happened on the 15th into the 16th. What I've experienced is an opening of this portal. It feels like a walkway. Like, I just see this big cylinder of swirling energy, like literally opening, but it's not like a piece of plywood that has a hole in it. It's like a long cylinder tube that we're walking in as this portal continues to open and continues to like open as a new path into a new reality in front of us. That, like, it's not about the end all be all version of truth. It's about a deepening relationship and being able to feel it in our bodies. The North Node and the Sun were basically conjunct during the full moon in Taurus. And so that's really where we're headed, is this Taurus, like, literal felt sense of our own security and well-being, an embodied sense of our own well-being. And in order to do that, that requires like a level of healing of the trauma that is stored in the body in order to be in the body and have it be a safe place to be in the body. So this portal that we are in it strongly, at least for the next 2 weeks, which is to say until the next lunar phase change. Like, there are different lunar phases in between the full moon and the new moon, but they're all they're all progressions of moving in the same direction towards the new moon, which is the blank slate, which will happen in Gemini at the end of May. So we have 2 weeks of being in this Scorpio lunation, like super intensely, that full moon rooting itself down into the layers of our reality. And because it's an eclipse, it's even stronger. Eclipses happen in the signs of the nodes. So it's stronger, as in this purge of our deepest fears and our self-limiting patterns that is kind of an 18-month transit of the South Node through Scorpio is really illuminated during this Scorpio full moon portal these next couple weeks. And really, they say eclipses can be felt up to 6 months after. And I'm excited to see, for myself. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can definitely feel the interconnectedness of the experiences that are manifesting as part of this portal that has opened in these last few days. And I'm interested to see, does this experience kind of trail off at the end of May with the Gemini new moon, or is it simply a progression and it's still very obvious that we're still inside the same unfolding that was initiated with this portal opening? So I don't know. I'll keep you posted. Um, coffee. So this morning, one of the pieces that is manifesting into my reality, which I am super grateful for, is discovering for, new to me kind of thing, the work of Matt Kahn, Kahn. He has a couple books. He may even have more now. Some of the content I was watching was like 4 or 5 years old, but so he is an author, but he's also a public speaker, and I've watched his sessions on YouTube, and just the quality of what he offers reminds me of Tara Brach and Eckhart Tolle, where they are technically lecturing, but it almost ends up feeling more like a meditation than a lecture. So just a really peaceful vibe. And he is all about love. That's like, might even be his tagline or whatever, is the basis of every part of his philosophy is based in the love that we naturally are, as I don't think he puts it quite this way, but as extensions of source energy is my understanding. Like, we are pure unconditional love at our cores. And then our personality, our conditioning, our patterns, our unhealed wounds spiral around our energy field and create the expressions that we often offer. And that as we heal more of what has transpired in our energy grid in the past, that those healings that we do inside of ourselves allow for more love to come into us, and that through this process, while we are technically healing ourselves, we are also facilitating and cooperating to allow for a much larger healing to go on the planet. Because when we are individually more full of love, we will offer love more readily to others. And so much this is where we really get into the real stuff. Like, so much of what has been shown to me in the Scorpio full moon portal is patterns in the past, and very much almost still in my present, where I'm lashing out in a way that can only be described as me feeling hurt and taking it out on other people. That, there's definitely been times in my life where I was maybe going faster down that road than other times, but I noticed that even now, with as much healing as I've done, there is still that tendency when I am deeply triggered into my shadow, that one of my knee-jerk reactions can be to basically let the shit roll downhill and like put it onto somebody else. And that action like I just want to take a moment and bring some love to myself in that moment, myself in the moment of I I could be doing better. I could have done better. I wish I would have done better. I wish I wouldn't have taken my pain out on someone else, but that was what happened, and that was the best I could do in that moment. And witnessing that basically what I'm having happen is like almost the veil is dropping away, the truth is naturally crystallizing in front of me, and I'm seeing my patterns in a new light and a new sharpness of focus. And while some of it is good, a lot of it is like, wow, I still have a long ways to go. Like a long ways. And yet, this is where finding Matt's work has been such a relief. It's like everything that unfolds is part of our higher good. And again, I don't mean to be like quoting directly from him because I'm not sure I heard him say exactly that, but like basically everything that gets woven into our experience, like we can learn from it. We can be better because of basically anything. That like our reality isn't based on what happened to us. Our reality is based mostly on how we didn't stand up for ourselves in the moment, like we're not mad that they said that. We're mad that we took it in as fact without defending ourselves. That's just like one example. But that is definitely what I'm seeing of like one of the pieces that triggers my growth is feeling judged by others, or another way to say that is feeling misunderstood by others. They both land very similarly in my system, and it feels like a rejection. And it has been fascinating to see how, my YouTube journey of putting myself out there, doing my best to like flow as purely and authentically as I can, and sharing that in hopes that, somebody might get an ounce more clarity in their own situation by looking into my example. And when those expressions attract feedback that feels prickly for whatever reason, like it's rubbing up against my shadow, it's essentially, and what I'm seeing in the zooming out bigger picture of this portal is like basically when they're rubbing up against my own self-criticism, it really hurts. It really pulls my chain. And it's so easy to be mad at the person who said what they said, but that's just never the root of what's truly going on in the upset that we feel from time to time, in the moments when we're triggered into our shadow. The reason that their words sting is because I already know. I already know that I shouldn't be this way, or that I should be different, or that I should be more like this. Like I'm already saying that to myself. So when somebody else says it, it makes it undeniable. It forces me out of my own denial that I'm judging myself. It's easy to pretend like I'm not until somebody else echoes what I'm already leveraging against myself, and makes it really difficult to avoid that reality that this judgment exists, but it doesn't exist in them because they don't even know me. It exists in me, and I'm upset because I'm judging myself. Like one of the videos that I watched of Matt's this morning was about like haters, and I love his point because essentially he's like, first and foremost, we've got to make friends with the hater inside our own minds. Like our inner critic who has nothing better to do than sit around all day and tell us how we could be doing things better, how we weren't perfect that one time, and how we hurt this person because we should have been different, and on and on and on about how we're not living up to all the things. And that inner critic, that inner hater, is really the one that needs our love. That inner part of ourself that is afraid of rejection or disconnection or, worse. There's real fear that exists based on past patterning, and we can't get through the fear without honoring the fear. And that's one of the things that he gave as advice as far as like how to deal with that inner hater or outer haters, doesn't matter, same thing, is like to say thank you. To say thank you for, like, especially when it's you inside your own mind being afraid of something, like, you are not what you think, for one. You are the awareness that is hearing what you're thinking, and that is reflecting the separation. The distinction is probably a better way to say it than separation. The distinction between your whole self, your soul, if you want to call it that, your higher being, your full being, and your mind. Your mind, like that small focus that is, it's more a tool. It's not our master. It's a tool that we can use to solve problems when we run into things where fancy thinking is helpful. Like, it's a tool. But our thoughts are not our guiding posts. They are not our master. They are not our navigator. Like, our thoughts don't know where or how or what or why. Like, they are a tool that we can apply when we need something done with fancy thinking. But what I'm seeing is that my thoughts judge me and feed me that judgment all day, every day, about, like, basically in the disguise of continuous improvement. Like, here, Carly, let me help you. Let me help you. Let me help you be more perfect. Let me help you get better and better and better. Meanwhile, underneath the whole thing is a really sneaky vibe that I cannot believe I have been unaware of this presence. Like, I even talked almost a year ago now. It was more like the end of last summer, about the mother wound that I had heard about on a podcast, and someone was talking about how, like, abundance in their lives really opened after they healed their mother wound. And so I did just 5 seconds of Googling about, what is the mother wound? And it is literally like the damage left on you by your relationship with your mother. So we technically basically all have one. We have a father wound as well. It could be your primary female caregiver. It doesn't necessarily have to be your biological mother, although it will likely encompass both of them, because if your biological mother isn't in the picture, there will be damage from that exit. The separation from her leaves a mark, regardless of if she said a word to you or not. And the mother wound, it encompasses it all, the damage left on us by our moms. And this is not to villainize mothers. This is not to say, like, they're horrible creatures and how dare they. Like, basically, I'm saying, like, if you're a mother, like, which I'm not, so I can't know for sure, but, like, I'm pretty sure let yourself off the hook, because every single person, like, nobody's mom was who they needed them to be. I so genuinely believe that like, in some way the nurturing that we received in childhood was inadequate, and that almost to the point of, like, there's a book that Maddie was telling me about called Busting Loose of the Money Game. We talked about it on maybe the first Heart to Heart episode, possibly. One of the Heart to Heart episodes. Anyways, basically his message in that book about how to bust loose of the money game is to realize that money doesn't even exist. Like, physical reality is an illusion. This doesn't exist. Physical goods don't exist. None of it exists. And so, like, just like, let go of the attachment to this thing as real, and acknowledge the pure co-creation of like the value of money is real because we all agree that it is. And we trade it for value because we've both agreed that this has value. But if we switch systems, which has happened in the past, monetary systems have evolved over the centuries. And like, as we agree that something now has value, it's like, again, this is just co creating a shared reality while still each and every single one of us gets to decide for ourselves what's valuable to you. Like, there's a lot of room separate from money to find value in things like learning or a teacher that just speaks to your soul, the value of someone like that manifesting into your life. That's very much, oh, I'm holding my heart because manifesting Matt Kahn as a teacher into my reality feels extremely abundant, extremely valuable. And there has been no money exchanged whatsoever. You know, this is just something that I get to receive, this abundance raining out of the sky onto me simply because I am wanting to receive it. I am open and allowing myself to receive it, feeling worthy of receiving it, because it's hilarious how in the first, a different recording that I took in was Unraveling Judgment. And that one was so good. In the first 5 minutes, he's, kind of setting up the talk. And about 5 minutes into it, he does a repeat after me, which apparently he does a lot of these. And he has you like raise your hand and take this oath about basically the gist of it is that you're not going to use this teaching on unraveling judgment. You're not going to use it to judge yourself. You're not going to use it against yourself as a weapon to see how bad you've been in the past. Like, I promise I'm not going to do that, even though I probably still will. And I laughed out loud because not only was I going to continue to use it to judge myself, but that I had already been using the first 5 minutes as a way to like, ding my scorecard of like all the ways that I have fucked up in the past. God damn it, Carly. Like, this is just a laundry list of like all your worst qualities. Like, that was very much like the first 5 minutes of listening to him talk. And so when he has us take this oath of like letting yourself off the hook and not using this teaching and this moment of like self-reflection and trying to clarify your being and come into greater balance with your higher self, like to not use this moment to beat up on myself. And I realized like in that moment, I feel like this is the exact quality of this Scorpio portal, is like I saw very clearly in that moment just how strongly I was already beating up on myself in the first 5 minutes. Like, that pattern runs deep, so deep. And this is where, Scorpio as an energy is about making the unconscious conscious. And that things coming up from the depths of our shadow self, like shadow meaning we can't see it. We don't know what it is, but we can feel that it's there. It lurks around and expresses itself in unhelpful ways in our personality mostly. And our goal, oh, this was good. He said like the biggest fear of the shadow is that we will bring out our best qualities. We will try our best, and we will still get rejected. And it is that fear that we will still get rejected that leaves our shadow unhealed. It leaves us leaving those shadow pieces down in the darkness, because I would rather feel the suffering of denying who I am than risk putting this out where other people can see it and potentially step all over it. I'd rather have the one suffering than the other. And it's kind of a flawed premise a little bit to be thinking in this way, I'm seeing within myself, that like, the worrying that people are going to step all over it, worrying that people are going to reject it. This is the sneaky piece that is underlying this whole thing that is in my unconscious, that through the Scorpio portal is coming up into my consciousness, is just how freaking rejected I felt in my childhood. And like by everyone, like everyone in my whole world. I felt like no one understood me. And that story, that tape played in my consciousness my whole life. And it was one of the biggest pieces of healing that when I found Abraham and like kind of Abraham Hicks and began my spiritual journey through like, tuning into my emotions as my guidance system, one of the practices that Abraham teaches is telling a better story. That like essentially the way you perceive reality is what shapes your reality. So the story that you're telling about how it was is what causes your reality to be what it is. And so to heal this feeling of being misunderstood so chronically, I had to tell a better story. I had to own my emotions, which is another technique that she teaches of like emotional responsibility, where you are responsible for every single thing that you ever feel. Nobody's doing anything to you. Everything is happening inside of you, is to help you. It's guidance. And when we feel bad, it's our higher self letting us know that they don't agree. They don't agree with us on whatever it is that we're thinking in this moment. So when I'm scared that I'm going to put something out there and that somebody is going to step all over it and that that's going to tear me apart, that feels really terrible, because my inner being knows that that's not really how it works. That my sense of security, it was never out like in waiting for other people's approval, which is a pattern that dates back to my childhood. Because I think when we're rejected, when you put yourself, your authentic self out there in the world and other people, one of two things happens. Like either they, hopefully they accept it, but almost always they're not going to fully accept it to the extent that your deepest soul would want them to. So there's always going to be some gap between what your soul is craving and what other people are able to give you, because we are the only ones who can ever really actually approve of ourselves. And so when we're rejected by others, when they refuse to see us in our authenticity, meaning they neglect to acknowledge what we are demonstrating, or they provide negative attention, meaning they react poorly, they tell us that doesn't, that song that you're singing doesn't sound nice, or you just weren't born with this gift, or you just don't get how this works, or you just, are too dramatic and make too big a deal out of things that aren't really true. When they fill us full of these things that tell us that our authenticity is wrong, either by giving us negative feedback or by refusing to see us in our authentic expression, we learn that behavior on our part of expressing our authenticity, it isn't safe. It's not safe to reveal that part of ourselves. And so our authentic self literally becomes our shadow. And we begin living from a place of, this was in a different MatCon video that I watched yesterday, where he talked about the 4 core wounds of the ego being neglect, abuse, codependency, and loss. Neglect, abuse, codependency, and loss. And how codependency is basically when your parent needs you to behave in a certain way so they can be happy. And I have never, in all of my healing my jealousy issues and healing my own codependency in relationships, in everything that I've ever taken in about codependency, I've never manifested it being explained to me in a way where it is set up from like how you were parented. Your parent demanding that you fulfill their wishes instead of your own is the beginning of codependency. So I know that in this portal, what is being dissolved is my own denial of how angry and hurt I really am. That like there is a child inside me who is still deeply devastated at the mostly neglect, a little bit of abuse, mostly in the form of verbal rejection. I mean, not like physical abuse, but that still that verbal rejection, that negative attention counts as abuse if it goes against your authentic self. When you're little and you just don't know any better and you just are joyful and expressing your joy because that's what's right, and that's what feels right to you in that moment. And then to have somebody say that that's wrong is abuse. It breeds codependency. It teaches us that what we need and what we feel and what's right for us, it doesn't matter if it goes against what's right for somebody else. It teaches us to meet other people's needs and to seek other people's approval instead of feeling for our own approval, feeling for ourselves, like what's right for me, aka like let me do what's right for me, and then I'll be approving of myself because I felt my need and I met my need. I gave myself what I needed. I almost said what I netted. Sure. So in this Scorpio portal of making the unconscious conscious, I am finding my denial dissolving, and what rises in place of that is a deep grief and sadness and anger, and around it all kind of a fuzzy haze of knowing that I do have the awareness of self-parenting and reparenting. I do have the process in my being, in my consciousness, to be my own safe space, to be my own parent. The job of the parent is to honor the child and to keep them safe, to listen to the feedback of the child and to help to tune the environment to create a safe space for the child to thrive. And when our authentic expression and feedback is negated or argued with or flat out ignored, we are taught that we basically don't deserve safety, that it doesn't matter if you feel safe or not. That's not what's important. Keeping the peace with the higher ups is what's important. Otherwise, you get punished. When you disagree, when you disobey, when you step out of line, you get punished. When you try to do things that are lazy or weak, you get punished. One of my most significant experiences that only just like wove itself in the moments right before I turned on recording for this episode was, I've talked before in an episode on my channel, on my YouTube channel, in a shadow work status update about like realizing my Chiron opposition was at age 12 and the bullying that I underwent at age 12 and my role in leveraging words against someone else that caused them to retaliate towards me. And basically that was a wildfire that caught on in terms of the retaliation that came back on me for the awful words that I perpetrated on another. I hurt someone else and I was hurt in return. And I went to my mom that whole entire 7th grade year to beg her to please don't make me go to school. Don't, like, please let me change schools. There's a school that was like the same distance from our house as the school that I was attending. And it was for the kids that were outside the city, but we were technically outside the city. And I begged her to let me go to that school instead, that, you know, it would be an easy transition, and please don't make me go back there. And the whole entire 7th grade year, the feedback from her was, you got to tough it out. You got to tough it out. You got to tough it out. It's not that bad. It's just a little teasing. You got to tough it out. And this is just weaving itself together in this moment, but yesterday I had a conversation with Tony, a friend of mine, and he was saying how, like, when he was little, one time he told his mom, like, he was really angry, and she just, without missing a beat, told him in return, like, I don't care how angry you are. And as he told me this story, it was so easy from my external, I wasn't there point of view to understand that what she was really saying in that moment was, I don't care if I'm angry. It doesn't change anything. I have no power to change anything, even when I'm mad. So I don't care that you're mad. It doesn't matter when we get mad. This was her own belief from her own experience of her own emotions being futile in the world to change anything. That she had had her power stripped away in so many different ways that by the time she's in this moment with her son, Tony, that she has no grace to give him or his emotions because hers don't get any and neither do his. That like we treat other people the way that we treat ourselves. And when my mom is telling me that I got to tough it out, like basically what I can understand from her upbringing and her training, her conditioning, was that her dissatisfaction didn't matter. Her hurt and upset and being treated poorly didn't matter. Nobody came to her rescue, and she sure as shit wasn't going to come to mine. You got to tough it out. That's what we do. That's how you prove that you're strong. You got to tough it out. And the Carly that's sitting in this chair right now, little girl Carly's new parent, adult, I say that in quotation marks because what the fuck does that even mean? I feel like I'm more childlike than I've ever been. But, I am my own parent now. And that's fucking bullshit. If somebody is hurting me, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to pull myself out of that situation. I'm going to address the situation, ask it to stop. And if it doesn't stop, I will stop subjecting myself to that environment. I will make a safe environment for myself. I will do that. Little girl Carly is safe with me. She is still deeply hurt from what she's experienced in her life, but she is finally home. She is finally home with a parent who will keep her safe. And that feels like the best gift that I could have ever hoped to receive. And to get to this point has been to drop the denial of how hurt I really am, to feel the pain and suffering that I do still feel inside of myself when I think about the way I was raised. I'm still grieving that I didn't have the parenting that I wish I did in my formative years. And through that grieving, I'm essentially informing my current parent, my own adult self. I'm teaching my adult self how to parent my little self by processing all the traumas that little girl Carly is holding on to, making the unconscious conscious. These pains, these hurts are rising to the surface so that parent Carly can nod along and say, yep, I can see why that sucked. I can see why that was painful. Noted. We won't let you be exposed like that again. You're right. Yeah, that would definitely hurt. You need to cry? Let's cry. Let's sit here and feel this for a minute. It's okay. You're safe to feel whatever you need to feel. Whatever the genuine feedback is about your experience, I'm willing to listen. Little girl Carly is safe. She's safe in my care. And to feel protective over my own inner child is an evolution in my consciousness that I've not stood in this place before. I've not had this level of serenity, knowing that no one is ever going to hurt little girl Carly again because I am now her protector. And because I know how to stand up and speak my truth, I know for a fact that she's safe. I know that when I feel anger, that I have power inside me that I can use. When I feel hurt, that there are powers of self-soothing that I myself can wrap around little girl Carly. I can soothe my own hurt. I can shelter my own being in the safety of my own grown-up abilities, the coping skills that I've built over the course of my life, and especially these last 10 years. I am my own protector. She is safe. And again, like, that's new territory. This is the safest my inner child has ever felt. It's the most seen my inner child has ever felt. And what shifted was not anybody else seeing me. It was my own denial dissolving. My denial of how hurt I really am. Notice I say am, not was. I am. I'm hurt still. It's painful in there. Waves of pain continue to come out and need love. And that's what, parent Carly's doing today. She's sitting with little girl Carly processing the layers of rejection and isolation and negative feedback that was just people trying to keep themselves comfortable. In this protective spirit, I am owning more than ever before that my energy is highly individualistic. And if you study human design, you see that there are 3 circuits of energy inside humans. We have collective energy, tribal energy, and individual energy. And individual energy is the deliverer of mutations that lead to higher and higher levels of consciousness. That's the function of individual energy, is that we'll find breakthroughs, literal mutations that haven't existed before because someone isn't willing to conform and follow the rules of the tribe. They step outside and they find a new path. And I know my energy is like, that's the only channel I got is the 1222. And that is the social expression of individual energy. That's what the 1222 is for, is to say your individual energy out loud. And that's what I got. That's the energy I'm working with. And more than ever before, I'm seeing how individual energy naturally rubs people the wrong way who are deeply stuck in their comfort zones. And I see that in my parents, especially my mom. She is a boulder. She is rock solid. She is unchanging and unmoving. And there are benefits to that. There are pros and cons to everything in life. But when I would question or poke into her own emotions or her own discomfort or dissatisfaction in the moment, instead of her allowing me to bring that to the surface and honor that, yes, this is authentically what I'm feeling at this moment. I mean, she was repressing and denying her own pain. And basically, I inherited that wound by the way she treated me, treating me that my pain doesn't matter. All she was teaching me was that her pain didn't matter. Not that mine didn't, that hers didn't. And I don't think that's true. I think her pain matters a lot, but until she wants to recognize that it does, there's nothing I can do. The only thing that I can do is be a parent to little girl Carly and to honor that her pain matters a lot and that I am willing to craft an environment of safety around her at all times. And if ever she's feeling unsafe, to simply speak up and we will further evolve the environment to recreate safety around her. Period. Let me know. Let me know what you need and I'm all over it. Like, protective over my own inner child. This is a beautiful new terrain that I stand in, and I share it with love for you as being co-present in this energy, hoping that this story of me reconnecting with, admittedly the pain and suffering of my own inner child, but ultimately bringing about a greater sense of peace and comfort and safety inside my being that I am allowing for myself. Simply by releasing my own denial that I'm even hurt in the first place. Acknowledging that I am in fact hurt allows me to be safer. Now how can that be? No, I joke. I joke because I just told you my story, and I think that's how it bees. You know, when we acknowledge our hurt, we can do something about it. When I listen to the Book of Water, Stephen Forrest talks about the water energy being Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces in the zodiac wheel. That's water energy, and water energy is about healing and regeneration, both healing ourselves and being able to heal other people, heal the planet. This is water energy, the function of it. And Cancer, being the most primitive of the water signs, it's the most basic, the most raw. It is literally our ability to feel. And with that, like, feeling is healing. You cannot feel or you cannot heal what you cannot feel. So this Scorpio full moon portal making the unconscious conscious, it has been a powerful burst of feeling my true feelings. And again, it sounds so counterintuitive that the more we let our uncomfortable feelings actually come through us to be felt, that the more comfortable we really are. The more we acknowledge that we don't feel safe and are allowing ourselves to admit that and to process and actually feel the fear, it gives way to evolving our environment so we can feel safe, or evolving our spiritual climate so that we can feel more rooted in our true divine nature, and not so much move past fear, but train ourselves into a frequency where we are more connected to our higher selves, our extension of source energy selves, where fear doesn't exactly exist at that vibration, because fear is a negative emotion. And negative emotion, if you study Abraham Hicks, negative emotion is simply an indicator that you are disconnected from your higher self. So when you are in alignment with your higher self, fear no longer exists. Only positive emotion exists in the realm of the higher self. And when we feel positive emotion, we are closer and closer to the realm of the higher self. And when we feel negative emotion, we are further and further away from the realm of our own higher self. I'll end with this. I was drawing tarot cards the other day, this was before the Scorpio portal opened, and I was wanting to clarify, what is the function of owning authenticity on the planet? Owning authenticity being the community, the energetic space that exists around this podcast and my channel, and just all the people that are gathering. What is the function of what owning authenticity is here to do? And I drew 3 cards. We'll see if I can remember them here. I don't have it written in front of me, but the first one was the 4 of Swords. I know that. And basically on the Light Seers deck, the 4 of Swords is a giant nest and a small-ish looking girl kind of curled up and resting in the middle of the nest. And my takeaway anytime I pull the 4 of Swords is that let's begin with a nap. Let's rest. Rest is my ultimate takeaway. Like, in an instance of seeing the 4 of Swords, I think rest is what I need to do. Okay, good to know. And then, I don't remember the second card, but the word that came from it was surrender. Surrender to the cosmos. It was the Hanged Man. That's what it was. Surrender. That this pause is here for a reason, and we'll see the reason for it as soon as we surrender to the pause itself. Surrender. And surrender is a tricky concept, especially when you're a doer, heavy in the doing. That, surrender, I don't think so. Like, I'm an action person. I like to take charge. These are my own patterns that I've worked on healing, and surrender as a concept became a lot more helpful to me after I learned that ultimately what we're surrendering to is our own highest self. The part of ourselves that has the clipboard and the checklist of like your soul mission of like what were you coming for in the first place. Your higher self is tracking that at all times. It's trying to line you up with stimuli and experiences and circumstances that can help to awaken you to your highest mission, what you actually came here for. So the highest self is doing this work 24/7, constantly, all the time. And we are either aligning with, merging with, cooperating with our higher selves, or we are maintaining control, which is an illusion, over ourselves, which is to say, keep ourselves stuck in the suffering. So when we surrender control, when we give up trying to control the outcomes and surrender to our highest selves, being like, I'm not trying to manifest happiness, I'm trying to manifest what's the best for my highest self. Right? Like I don't, it's not that I don't care about happiness or that I don't enjoy happiness, because I do, but my bigger picture understanding is that sometimes suffering is actually what is best for you. Letting go of denial and acknowledging the pain that you're carrying is what is best for you. And that shit ain't happy. But in the end, again, it's so counterintuitive, letting in those discomfortable, those uncomfortable feelings actually cultivates a state of comfort and safety, because now you're safe to feel anything that might come up. So surrender, but you're surrendering to your own highest self, to your own highest good, the mission that your unique soul is on. Nobody gave you that mission. You signed up for it yourself because you wanted it to happen. And the more we align with our highest selves, the more we basically are getting out of our own way. So surrender to our highest selves. First, rest ourselves, surrender to our highest selves. And the last card was the Five of Cups. And with that one, I always think of release, release, release. Like feeling the pain in order to release it. Like we're not trying to, call up our shadow and stir up the dust for no good reason. We're doing that so that we can move through it and release it. The water family, as I mentioned, Cancer is the first stage of feeling it. Scorpio is the second stage of looking it in the face, right? Like how I had to melt my denial in order to even be able to see the pain that I was carrying, the anger, the hurt, the rejection, all of this, so that the third step of the water family is Pisces, and that is transcendence. That is the release. That is literally where we make peace with what we went through because we are no longer there. We have found our way to safety. Little girl Carly is safe inside parent Carly, so it is now safe for me to feel this hurt. And basically what I'm seeing is that I believe I am only on the very tip of the iceberg as far as the unhealed pain that is inside of me that is waiting to come out, now that little girl Carly has a safe space to do that. And again, the Scorpio full moon lunar eclipse portal is facilitating this. There's nothing for me to do but relax, rest, surrender, and release, and to simply be with whatever comes up. And when a moment happens where our old pattern comes to the surface, for us to be able to see it more clearly, we can say thank you. We can allow ourselves to stay out of denial and to simply be with whatever comes up. What happened just like this morning after I was watching all that, and basically Dolly was upset. She's in her own moment of emotional release, powerful energy that was repressed energy triggered inside her that is ready to be released. And she was about to cry, and she left and was going to go drive around and just be with herself and clear her head. And my gut reaction, my initial reaction was, did I do something? Not, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're upset. Like, are you okay? Can I do anything? Or is there anything you want to talk about? Like, I wasn't there for her. I was instantly terrified that I had messed something up and caused her to feel this way. And again, this is the latest bite-sized piece in this portal that is revealing itself, that without my defenses of my own denial, I can see how much I really do torment myself by constantly assuming responsibility for everyone around me, everyone and everything around me. And again, like that goes back to, we were trained into codependency. We don't just show up like that. So, and that probably is my own karmic pattern as well. There's a reason I chose to be born into the family that I came through. Like I wanted that treatment so that I could heal these patterns in these ancestral lineages once and for all. That is my honor. And the stage that I'm at is very scorpionic in terms of looking it in the face, sitting with your suffering, and allowing little girl, little boy, whoever, to feel the pain that was never allowed before. And as your own parent, your own protector, to finally hold that space open so that that pain can be felt and processed and released. Dear friends, this was a big one. Thank you for being in this space with me, for receiving this from me, for in part helping to co-create this exact expression that I am able to leave here. You're a part of co-creating this safe space for this expression of my soul. And I am deeply honored and humbled by having this safe space to do exactly what I've just done, to honor my own inner flowings of energy. I send you so much love and peace for what is possibly a scorpionic phase of your own journey, where the chapter that you're in is coming face to face with your own pain and suffering, and wrapping your adult arm around your own inner child to help create a safer space for yourself. Thank you for being here and for shining your light in the world. Until next time, dear friends, you take such good care of yourselves, and so will I.